Back at Mar-a-Lago after a day of whirlwind travel across the southeast.
In sanctuary states and cities, innocent Americans are at the mercy of criminal aliens. They're no good.
The media jumps on these stories and continues this false narrative. Tells the American people something's going on.
Calling out the fake news, story after story after story. He is bold, he is brash, and he is getting things done. That's why he's the president.
Raging wildfires out west turning deadly.
We're facing a new reality in the state where fires threaten people's lives. This is kind of the new normal.
In Jackson, Mississippi, the president toured the state's brand new $100 million Civil Rights Museum.
This is a tribute to our nation at the highest level.
48-yarder on the way. No good. Army, for the second year, has won it.
We're going. We are going surfing today. We are bringing the waves. We are bringing a surfboard. Ebony K. Williams, welcome back to the couch. Are you ready to go surfing?
Round two, fellas. I am. I bought my gear, so
Yes.
I'm excited.
Ebony, you wore, it appears to be, you wore Army white.
Congratulations
Okay,
to
guys, just
the United States
that
Army.
bad dog right there.
Pete here picked a winner. We got to eat that.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir.
Congratulations.
I mean, you wide right by about 5 feet. If they'd kicked it, it was a tough kick, 48 yards in the snow.
That
What
was
a great game.
Beautiful
Fantastic.
game.
I wish I would have bet on the under on the number of passes thrown.
There were how many, like 4
That was
passes
like
thrown?
smash mouth football.
It's watching
Yeah.
like old school smash mouth, like you said. I
Yep.
mean, no passes, all runs, but you still can't stop it, and you got to kind of love it.
Absolutely.
So we're going surfing, but we've also got to surf our way through some news. The president,
Some fake news.
yet in another fight
true.
over Twitter with the Washington Post.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. So yesterday, we saw the rally in Pensacola. We talked about it yesterday, at the top of each hour. And the president was in rare form. And we knew there was a packed house. He tweeted, in fact, on our show that it was a packed house up to the rafters. Well, Dave Weigel, who's a reporter for the Washington Post, went to Twitter yesterday and tweeted this out. And we'll set it all up for you here. Actually, President Trump started out with a tweet calling out Dave Weigel. Let's look at what President Trump tweeted yesterday. He said, with a picture of what was going on at the rally and a tweet from President Trump. I don't know which tweet we're putting up. Let's just put up the one that we have. There we go. There's Dave Weigel. He tweeted this earlier in the day. He said, packed to the rafters, quote, which the president had said. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't look packed to the rafters, right? That
No,
looks
that's
like
a skeleton crew.
That's a skeleton crew of the rally. Well, it turns out that photo was taken about 2 hours or a few hours before the actual event. Dave Weigel either knew that or didn't know that. So the president called him out on Twitter yesterday saying this, at Dave Weigel, at Washington Post, put out a phony photo of an empty arena hours before I arrived at the venue with thousands of people outside on their way in. Real photos now shown as I spoke. Packed house, many people unable to get in. Demand apology and retraction from fake news Washington Post.
I guess we should say that Dave Weigel did end up actually apologizing. He conceded the point.
But his apology wasn't quite the most sincere.
Well,
Here's what he
let's
says.
let people take a look.
Put the tweet up from Weigel. Sure thing. I apologized. I deleted the photo after DeMartosco told me I'd gotten it wrong, was confused by the image of you walking by in the bottom right corner.
So if you do the forensics on the photo, there maybe could have been on the photo where it showed it empty, an image in the bottom right where it looked kind of like the president, but he's probably an advanced guy. You can't even really see it. Bottom right, it looks.
Well, as you could imagine, Pete, President Trump not quite satisfied with that apology from Weigel.
So if you're just waking up trying to sort through what we're trying to tell you, this is yet another member of the media trying to undermine the president's rally, to diminish the support that he had at the rally, which, as the president took to Twitter his Excalibur, and we'll tell you why I just said that in just a moment.
I heard that phrase over the weekend.
He had to take Twitter to defend himself, to knock down these accusations.
So he apologized, Dave Weigel, but President Trump, not satisfied, saying at Dave Weigel of the Washington Post, just admitted that his picture was a fake or fraud, showing an almost empty arena last night for my speech in Pensacola, when, in fact, he knew the arena was packed, also as shown on TV. Fake news. He should be fired. I think the issue a lot of us take with this is the immediacy, the quickness with which a reporter will go to Twitter with one photo to say, not true, which would have never
Well,
been
let's
done
talk
to
about
previous
that.
administrations
Also,
or others.
there used to be this thing, really, in journalism, right, where it was more important to be right than to be first. So you're talking about something that's really important here. I think in this day and age, maybe, I don't know if it's a race to tweet first, whatever, but I think people are costing themselves a lot of credibility around this kind of need to be first and be oh so wrong.
I think that's right, Ebony.
Right, but you know, listen, why is he calling for any member to be fired in this case specifically? Because the reporter sought to undermine him. As I pointed out, look, here's the deal about journalism, right? You gather facts, you get it correct, you make sure it's right, you give some context, and you report it wherever the chips may fall, and you have no favor,
But there's issues.
in this case,
fanciful, wonderful
but here's the thing, in this case,
every journalist has their own bias. And what Trump has done is ferreted out all the liberals, which is most journalists in America today in these newsrooms, who can't help themselves because they hate Trump
but you know,
so much.
There's another
they'll
issue.
do anything to take him down.
I don't disagree with the bias. Obviously, I think we all know it's there. I've even had some friends at different news organizations acknowledge, you know, that they absolutely feel a way about this president, and sometimes it shows in their reporting. Here's the issue, though, right? We also, though, have a First Amendment, right? And so, therefore, there are some people now taking to Twitter in lieu of the president's calling for this guy to be fired, saying that this is like a chilling effect of POTUS on the First Amendment, which, again, it's a different issue. Yeah. But a lot of people are going
But here's the
there
thing.
with it.
Look, I disagree with my friend Pete here a little bit. I don't think Dave Weigel should get fired, okay? He
I didn't say he should be
apologized.
fired. I'm saying
He apologized, and he's a
clearly
journalist.
trafficking in fake
and he
news.
admitted his thing. But, you know, here's the bigger thing. We wake up
Define
today
journalist.
and look at the news. Grab your copy of your New York Times. The New York Times assigns their all-star team of Haberman, Baker, and Glenn Thrush, who's
Is Haberman on the All-Star team? Maybe on your All-Star team, not mine.
And
but
a enormously 3-4 page article about the president. The headline: "The President versus the Presidency."
That's right. Griff,
Pete, what did you make of it?
You raise a great point. We'll read a little bit of a quote. Go ahead, Griff. Read
Well,
the
this
quote.
stood out to me as a fair journalist, but I read this, I was like, what? It says, despite all his bluster, he views himself less as a titan dominating the world stage than a maligned outsider engaged in a struggle to be taken seriously, according to interviews with 60 advisors, associates, friends, and members of Congress. There is everything wrong with that statement. And, you know, this whole notion about anonymous sources, about putting things out there, in this case, an unflattering article.
So, Ebony,
headline
so much going on
Right.
in the world.
This is Sunday New York Times. This is the predominant. Look, show the cover.
Yep.
This is the story.
Zoom in on the title here. It's failing.
This is a direct.
For many reasons.
Okay, Pete. This is a direct result, though, gentlemen. I think of the New York Times and a lot of kind of the East and West Coast mainstream people not understanding Donald Trump, not understanding the way his mind works, not understanding what makes him tick, and therefore I think they're very, very dumbfounded, literally dumbfounded around how he operates. So I think when you read this, and I actually did read it, it really goes deep into all this stuff, how often he watches television, how many Diet Cokes he drinks. Yeah, I mean, they're going so deep trying to figure him out and really not getting any closer to
Great
than
point.
when
You see
they
the
began.
banner right here on your screen, the hour-by-hour fight for self-preservation. They make it out to look like this guy may not last another hour, so he tweets and he drinks Diet Cokes and he eats this and he talks to this person. In light of all the news, there's so much going on in the world, so much that's been accomplished. This is why when I talk about the failing, I'm not trying to parrot anything or say that they fail every day or that the ratings are down. They fail the American people.
It's a failure of understanding?
To be honest and objective about what their agenda really is.
Listen, I don't think they understand it, though, Pete. I think they honestly don't get it.
That's right. Listen,
exactly right,
the New York Times, let me tell you
right.
what the New York Times views Donald Trump as: Chauncey Gardner, which is a reference some of our viewers may know from the movie Being There. It was an old film with Peter Sellers where this guy that's been isolated his entire life, who is a simpleton, he attends to a garden, a wealthy guy dies, and then by the end of the movie, the guy's running for president of the United States. His brand of simple wisdom has caught on all across the country, and they don't know what to do with him. He literally can't be stopped. Famous line is, "I like to watch," because his entire knowledge has come from watching television, right? They see President Donald Trump, as Chauncey Gardner, because they did a giant article where all they say is the president sits in his office watching television and tweeting.
And of course, they say
They say that his Twitter is his Excalibur.
It's
they
full
do.
circle. Yeah.
I like to watch, except I like to build massive real estate empires and become a billionaire.
All right, so that's a lot there.
Well, and listen, in fairness, they could have been writing about the tax reform that's likely to get passed next week, about the coming off the jobs of Friday.
They could be talking about Roy Moore. They could be talking about a lot of things, but instead still trying to figure out President Donald Trump. But another big story that I thought was really unfortunate to me as an American, obviously also as a woman, comedian Chelsea Handler. She really went after our press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Yep.
And let's look at the video.
Hey y'all, it's me, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. My face is a big fat biscuit. This is foundation. And just like the foundation of America, it's Republican, it's strong, and it's white. I used to not know what foundation was, but our great president was kind enough to take me to a Sephora, and he said to the employee, hey, you see that fella right here? Make him a woman. Now, blush is very accessible. You can get this at a drugstore right next to the gun store where you can pick up your guns because it is your American right. I know what you guys were thinking. She's only 35. I get it. I got my dad's old face.
Okay, so let me tell you what my issue is, because I actually have a huge...
Just one?
Yeah, I have a huge sense of humor, exactly. Huge sense of humor. I give comedians actually a lot of when it comes to this stuff, because this is, like you said, Pete, this is their editorial opinions.
Yep.
They can kind of go there and make this type of humor sellable. My issue, though, is when you look at her makeover, right? It's clear that she's trying to disparage Sarah's looks. And, you know, obviously you guys know I wrote a book, Pretty Powerful, that talks about this issue, a huge issue with this. I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders, first of all, looks fantastic when she's at that podium doing a tremendously hard job. Dana Perino here at Fox News has done that job. And very few women have been in that press secretary role.
Twitter's with you.
Where you're under scrutiny like that. And I think that she could have left that part out of it.
You're exactly right.
Twitter was totally with you. There was an outrage over Twitter, and you know, this is becoming the arena through which we derive sort of how things are being perceived.
Check the temperature.
It was you know, when it's undeniable in one way, you can believe that that you know, it struck the wrong chord, if you will.
Sure.
So Ariella tweeted this saying, "You cannot claim to champion women's rights and simultaneously mock a successful woman's looks simply because you disagree politically."
That's exactly right. Here's another one. This is from Dana. I'm glad to see how much of a strong feminist you are by promoting positive body image of another female. And that's the thing. This is not about right or left or liberal or conservatism or Republican or Democrat. That we can talk about ad nauseum and have laughs around it. But going there around her looks, I just felt like was unnecessary.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Friends at FoxNews.com. How outrageous is this?
Yeah.
Why are we going to looks when we can talk about issues?
And we're going to talk to the very best person we could to get a little reaction, and that is Governor Mike Huckabee about that.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going surfing today. And
Are
we're going to
we?
keep talking. You know, I would like our viewers to read that New York Times article and get a little feedback on that. Friends at FoxNews.com. I
Don't
didn't
read
plan
the
on
New York
asking
Times.
for that,
Just,
but I want
just
them to
watch
read.
us for the rest of the show. Go Army. President Trump talking tough this week on illegal immigration.
We are throwing them the hell out of our country, or we're putting them in prison.
So what did the American people think about that? We have the brand new dials you'll only see here.
Plus, the president says Roy Moore has...
We want people that are going to protect your gun rights. Great trade deals instead of the horrible deals. And we want jobs, jobs, jobs. So get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
President Trump rallying for Roy Moore in Florida for the Alabama race and saying America can't afford the Republican candidate to lose the race for the Senate. Is he right?
Joining us now with full reaction is Fox News contributor and radio talk show host Tammy Bruce. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us on this issue. So I think to give us some context, all right, as to how high the stakes are on this, because these are very huge political stakes for the president and for America. Let's look at the Senate balance of power. I think we've got a graphic. We can show it up and talk about just how close those numbers look right now. Right now, we've got 52 Republican senators. We've got 46 Democrats, 2 independent U.S. senators. So certainly certainly the president needs to retain Republican power in this seat. Tammy, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, even in the midterms, we're looking, of course, at expanding that. And we've seen the Democrats have already said that they're just going to obstruct. They're not going to help with anything just because. So when you've got a bloc like that, that's going to be operating on the personal and the political, it becomes more difficult. So it's interesting what the president's doing with Roy Moore. He's not being seen with Mr. Moore, of course, but he's being very blatant in his endorsement. It's because he doesn't want, and I think it's wise, an image to run this, the characters or the personalities to be what the factor is. He wants the issues to be the factor. So you saw that in his tweets about Roy Moore. You heard that in the soundbite you played, that this really is about, because, you know, he endorsed, of course, he was for Luther Strange in the primary. So we know where he stands. But the fact is that we're looking at, well, since he was elected, 2.2 million jobs are created, the lowest Hispanic unemployment rate in the history of the country, the most manufacturing dynamic that we've had. So we want that to continue. And the people of Alabama see this as policies more so than Roy Moore.
Tammy, what is it about this president? Because so many, almost 40 Republican senators came out when all these allegations first came out against Roy Moore and said he should step down or not run. The president was never part of that chorus, has stood by him, if quietly at first and now openly. Yeah. Why does he have the instinct to say this may be a vote I need when others will abandon it quickly?
Well, the Republican Party does not have a really good track record on winning. They don't have a really good track record on moving forward their agenda. They're now faced with a president who wants to do both things. So they're not going to be changing their spots anytime quickly. So none of us are surprised. And I think most people are also not taking the Democrats seriously. This is a party who elevated as Lion of the Senate, a man who left a woman in a car to die at the bottom of a lake. So we're not taking people seriously, the miscreants, if you will, in Washington about their moral superiority. The people of Alabama, look, I'm a cosmopolitan. I'm from L.A. and New York. I'm not going to tell them who to vote for. I wasn't a big fan of Roy Moore, but I am a big fan of the revolution we're undergoing and what the president's trying to accomplish. And that, I think, is what you're going to see in Alabama. We'll see what they do. And the fact of the matter is this is part of the transition that we're in. The president seems to be making that very clear.
Well, we're happy to have a cosmopolitan here with us.
I'm happy
good one.
For every state of this union. It's an important mix in Washington,
Absolutely.
And we've got to keep them honest and forward-looking when it comes to the changes this country needs.
Great point. Tammy Bruce, thank you very much for joining us this morning. All right, and the mainstream media making a series of missteps in their coverage of President Trump. Does this put a fork in the Russian collusion narrative? Welcome back to Fox & Friends on this Sunday. Some quick headlines for you and extreme weather. Millions of people in the Northeast are digging out this morning from the season's first big snowstorm. Some coastal areas receiving up to 6 inches, including my house. Black ice now creating treacherous travel conditions. The storms also stranding passengers at airports with thousands of flight delays and cancellations. This is the same storm that blanketed parts of the South with nearly 200,000 customers losing power. And in our second story, the firefighters are finally getting the upper hand on 6 massive wildfires carving paths of destruction in Southern California. Some now 50% are contained or more. That's great news. But the Thomas Fire in Ventura County still raging, consuming 155,000 acres and counting. It's 15% contained, but officials, they are hopeful. Governor Jerry Brown warning these devastating fires, they may be the new normal.
We're facing a new reality in the state where fires threaten people's lives, their property, their neighborhoods.
This week's fires have destroyed nearly 800 structures and forced more than 200,000 people out of their homes. Griff, over to you.
Thanks, Pete. The media forced to backtrack several times this week because of inaccurate reporting about the Russian investigation. ABC News' Brian Ross suspended after he reported that as candidate, Trump told Michael Flynn to reach out to the Russians, and CNN forced to correct a story about WikiLeaks and Donald Trump Jr. So do these mistakes derail the Russian collusion narrative? Here to debate it, and this is going to be a hot one, Fox News contributor Richard Fowler and host and Lawrence Jones, host of The Blaze. Guys, I just want to get right into this. Look, this is the biggest story of the year, and now you have the media making mistake after mistake after mistake. Richard, I'll start with you. Has this put the fork in the Russia collusion story?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that the media hasn't gotten this right, and I think it's imperative that journalists do the extra job to make sure that they educate the American people correctly about exactly what's happening here. But I don't think that takes away from the narrative, because the fact pattern still remains the same. Paul Manafort, the chairman of the Trump campaign, has been indicted. Mike Flynn, former national security advisor to the president. Excuse me, I'm not done. Mike Flynn, the former national security advisor to the President of the United States, has not only pled guilty, but he's also said that he will be working with the special prosecutor, meaning that he is a big fish, and he is going to talk to Mueller about what he knows and what he doesn't know, and that is huge when you think about the facts.
But you're talking about the facts, Lawrence? Facts pattern? Media mistakes? What do you say?
Well, see, this is what happens. This is what the press does as well. They just throw things out there to the American people without, being quite honest. Yes, Manafort was indicted, but not on collusion. Yes, Flynn is cooperating, but he's never said anything about Donald Trump being involved. And what we know that has been a consistent fact is that members of the intelligence community has always said that there is no evidence of collusion with the president, as well as reasonable members of Congress on both sides of the aisle have said there's no evidence. So, yes, they can continue to throw this stuff around, but it's not fact-based.
Richard, go ahead. I want to let you respond.
I mean, here's the thing. We don't know the fullness of this investigation. Anybody who's a lawyer or a prosecutor will tell you it's not all the information the press is getting is the full fact pattern, right? Mueller and his team know the full fact pattern.
They haven't got any of it right.
Excuse me, we don't know that.
Listen, here's the deal. The media is making mistakes, guys, at the same time that there's an undeniable scrutiny about the impartiality and fairness of Mueller's team itself. Numerous members getting kicked off, a judge recusing themselves. So the question is, Richard, I want you to address this. Can we trust the media as they scrutinize the fairness of Mueller's investigation to begin with?
Well, I think you have to parse it too. I think the media is in one place, and I think Mueller's another. I think we can trust Mueller. He was appointed by Bush, the first Bush. He was appointed by the second Bush. He was appointed by Ronald Reagan. He's one of America's top prosecutors, so we could trust him. And the fact that he is firing people on his team who show any level of bias speaks to the fact that we could trust him. That's different from the fact that the media has got this narrative wrong. And I think it's imperative, like I said at the top of the segment, for the media to make sure they double and quadruple check their facts before they present them to the American people.
Right, but Lawrence, I want to give you the last word.
Yeah, real quick. He fired them after they had completed parts of the investigation.
As soon as he found out about the bias, they were removed.
Hold on, Richard, let me finish.
How could you fire somebody before knowing they had a bias?
This becomes fruit of the poisonous tree. You know what? He should have made sure he did his due diligence before he put them on the freaking investigation. How do you know? How don't you not know that the majority of your team,
one of the individuals that was fired for text messages. As soon as Mueller found out about those text messages, that person was removed. That speaks to the integrity of the investigation.
All right, guys, we got to leave it there. We don't know when the bias starts, and that's why Congress is looking into it, and it's going to be an interesting week ahead. Richard Fowler and Lawrence Jones, guys, thanks very much. Have a good rest of the Sunday. All right, still ahead, Senator Al Franken under fire and announcing his resignation on the Senate floor.
I also think it gave some people the false impression that I was admitting to doing things that, in fact, I haven't done.
So what do the American people think of the senator's speech? Lee Carter has your brand new dials yet. And skier Lindsey Vonn says she isn't representing the President of the United States when she competes at the Winter Olympics. This morning,
one by one, we're finding the illegal alien drug dealers, the gang members, the thieves, the criminals and the killers preying on our children, preying on everybody. And we are throwing them the hell out of our country.
President Trump talking tough on illegal immigrants while at a rally in Pensacola, Florida on Friday.
So what did Americans think of that comment and the other big moments in his politics this week? Well, we're going to turn to to Lee Carter.
Lee Carter is a pollster and partner with Maslansky and Partners, and she just put those moments to the dial test. Lee, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
Always. Every week we're saying what a week. This is yet
It's
another of what a weeks. What do you make of this and how people are reacting to it?
I think he's had a tough week. There's no question that a lot of the things that have been happening over the last 2 weeks have taken a toll. His face is still strong, though.
Yeah. This is how did the folks react to the president's sound on illegals out of the country? Take a listen.
One by one, we're finding the illegal alien drug dealers, the gang members, the thieves, the criminals and the killers preying on our children, preying on everybody. And we are throwing them the hell out of our country, or we're putting them in prison.
So what do you make of that?
So you can see there, the Republicans continue to like his strong message on immigration. They gave it an A, independents a B-, and Democrats a D. A lot of folks here say that they don't like it when he goes too crass on immigration. People feel like, let's get it strengthened, let's deal with it, but they don't like it when he goes too far. And you can see that in the independent and the Democrat reaction there.
Absolutely. Okay, let me ask you this, though. When the Democrats have a D for that, I understand that they don't like too much crassness on immigration, Lee, but any indication as to how they would like the president to talk about legal immigration?
There's not really. I think at this point, we're really at a gridlock. Anything that he says about immigration, they're going to hear that he is a racist. They're going to hear a lot of these negative things. And so it's really, really hard for him to say anything to get them to come over on the side. The thing that I think is most important to watch, though, is the independents, because the independents throughout the cycle have really been right with Republicans on immigration. And so we know that he's having a tough time when you start to see that independent line soften.
You know, Lee, I was reporting from Washington all week on what I thought was a really big story, the Jerusalem announcement as the capital of Israel. Let's take a listen to that.
We finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. I am also directing the State Department to begin preparation to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. Today, I am delivering.
So that red line was pretty high up there on that graph.
You can see that the Republicans really, really support this move. They gave it an A, independents a C, and Democrats a D. I think there's a lot of concern by both independents and Democrats on what this means for the stability of the area, and they want to hear more about it. And they are concerned that this was maybe it was a promise that he made, but is it one that we need to do right now? So big concerns there.
Other news this week, Senator Al Franken, otherwise known as Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live, was on the Senate floor resigning, gave this speech. Take a listen.
I also think it gave some people the false impression that I was admitting to doing things that, in fact, I haven't done. Some of the allegations against me are simply not true. Others I remember very differently.
So tough to have a high grade on any speech like this, but what do you make of it?
So overall, Republicans gave this an F, independents a D, and the Democrats gave it a C. Now, again, very tough speech. A lot of people said it was as good as it could have been. This moment in particular is one of the low points because people said, listen, there was no reason for you. Just take responsibility. You don't have to shirk it at this point. The rest of his speech struck the right tone. I think people were relieved that he did resign. But overall, this was the low point of his message. They really want to hear him own it.
Lee Carter, thank you very much. Very fascinating to see how people are responding.
Always.
Talk to you again.
Thank you, Lee. Well, turning now to our headlines this morning. The Palestinian leader now cutting off all communication, refusing to meet with Vice President Mike Pence ahead of his visit to the Middle East next week. And another high-ranking Palestinian diplomat says they'll even seek a new mediator for peace talks. This as violent clashes break out in the region after the U.S. officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, a city Palestinians claim as their own. And the White House fighting back after gold medal skier Lindsey Vonn slams the president. The Olympian said she would only represent the people of the U.S. and not the president at the Winter Games.
Don't want to represent our country says a lot more about their character than it does the president's. The president is very proud to represent this country. He's very proud to be an American.
On adding that she would not visit the White House if the team were invited. And on Saturday, 2 days after her comments, Vonn suffered a back injury in the World Cup in Switzerland. Hillary Clinton causing some troubles at a Miami art fair. But it wasn't the failed presidential candidate herself. It was actually this funky portrait that set off bomb-sniffing security guards. The K-9s reacting to a crate containing the art piece, which was part of an exhibit. Ironically, in the portrait, Clinton is wearing a patch on her jacket that reads "threat." But after a thorough check, there was no threat at all. Well, that's good news. And a little snow didn't damper weather. Rick, what you got for us this morning?
He was pulling for Army, too, right, Rick?
Yeah.
No, he was for Navy.
I'm not, no. I love watching the game in the snow.
It's a fun game.
Any game in the snow is such a good time. And it's really slick out there. I actually almost wiped out this morning.
Really?
On the sidewalk. So it's going to be happening in a lot of places. The cold air that we have is settled across parts of Canada. You don't like to get it that close because we will see little bouts of it coming down in across parts of the U.S. But not that cold. But the cold has settled way down across parts of the south. It feels like 18 degrees in Atlanta. The roads are really slick from the snow, especially just to the north of the Atlanta area that we saw yesterday and the day before. So get ready for a very slow go of it. If you can stay inside today, probably your best bet. Not much snow going down across the south, but you see the front one all the way down across parts of South Florida. We have more snow that's going to be coming in across parts of the northeast, and another little clipper system coming around the Great Lakes today and tomorrow into Tuesday, and then eventually some much colder air. The west, where we have those fires, guys, no precipitation coming at all.
Rick, what is a clipper system?
A clipper system is a quick little area of low pressure that comes down across Alberta, Canada, an Alberta clipper. It's a fast little mover and brings snow usually around the Great Lakes and towards the northeast.
I just want to get that clipper to stay away from my flight back to D.C.
Yeah. Who knew that Los Angeles named their basketball team after a Canadian weather storm?
I don't think that was where it came from.
Okay.
But, yeah.
All right, Rick, thank you.